Welcome back. This is Mr. Hassan's Maths channel. I'm now answering question number 9 from the October-November 2022 IGCSE International GCSE Cambridge Paper 4 Variant 1 from the 0580 syllabus. This question here is about construction equations. 9 part B is on a separate video, 9 part A is on a separate video, and you can find them both on the playlist. Now 9A here, it says the total areas of rectangles A and B is 20 centimeters squared. So if I add the areas of A and B, I'm going to get 20. Show that 3x squared plus 6x minus 22 equals 0. So this is a show that question, where you have to be very clear or careful to show your steps properly so that you don't lose any marks. So first of all, we got to find the area of rectangle A, which is the length times the width, which is like x times 3x plus 4. And we got to add to that the area of rectangle B, which is going to be 2 times x minus 1. And when you do that, then the area has to be 20 centimeters squared. Centimeters, or centimeters squared, that's fine. The units are compatible. We don't have to do any messing around with that. There we have this expression now, or this little equation we formed. Now we have got to show that the equation becomes this. So don't just write that answer down now. What some people will do here, they'll just write 3x squared plus 6x minus 22 equals 0, and they would lose a mark for that, okay? Because one mark is for setting up the equation as we've done now, and the other mark is for simplifying it. So you should at least show that you've expanded the bracket. So you have 3x squared plus 4x plus 2x minus 2 equals 20. And now if you just write down the answer from here, that's fine, because you can show that you basically simplified these terms. So it's got 3x squared plus 6x and minus 2 minus 20. I would actually write this to make it very clear. Minus 2 minus 20, which is going to be minus 22. So we end up with what we have to show. 3x squared plus 6x minus 22 is equal to 0. And that's what we had to show, and that's exactly what we got. So don't just write this down and go to the answer. You'll definitely lose a mark for that. You have to show that you've expanded the brackets and simplified. All right, then it says part 2, solve the equation, well, the same equation we formed, giving your answers correct to 4 significant figures. Now, many people, if they can't do part 1 of a question, they'll just leave the rest of the question and not do any of it. And that's a big mistake. Here, there's going to be at least 4 plus at least 5 marks out of 7 that you can get quite easily without being able to do part 1. So don't just look at the first part of the question and ignore the rest of it if you can't do the first part. Look at the other parts. This is just simply solving a quadratic equation. And of course it says here, giving your answer to 4 significant figures. So they're telling you when you solve this equation, basically they're saying you're not going to be able to factorize it. When they have this little statement here, what they're trying to bring your attention to is that you can't factorize this because you're not going to get a rational answer. It's going to be a number with a square root in it. So you can't factorize it. All right. So don't even bother trying to split the middle term and all that. Just go straight away, either go to completing the square or to using the quadratic formula, which I think in this case is probably simpler to do, to use the quadratic formula. So that's what I'm going to do. So to use the quadratic formula, first thing really is a good idea for you to quote it. So if we have an equation, ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0, then to solve it using the quadratic formula, have minus b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So in our case, we have 3x squared plus 6x minus 22 equals 0. So our a is 3, our b is 6, and our c is negative 22. So we have x equals minus b, so minus 6 plus or minus the square root of b squared, which is 6 squared, minus 4 times a, which is 3, times c, which is negative 22, all over 2 times a, 2 times 3. Now that is where you get your method marks from. Quoting the formula is not enough if you put everything in the wrong place. If you don't quote the formula but you put everything in the right place, you get the method marks. But if you just go straight to writing the answers down without showing any steps, you won't get any marks because they know what you've done. They know that you just put it into your calculator, the function for solving equations, and you just put in a is 3, b is 6, and c is minus 22 inside that, inside that function. You press equals and equals again, and you got your 2 answers. They know that. So that's why it says you must show all your working. So this is how you show the working for using the quadratic formula. So now we can write down the two values of x. So we can take our calculator and we can put this in. So you have a minus 6. So minus 6 plus, well, I'll put the plus first, the square root of 6 squared. So I always like to put this in the brackets in case there's a minus sign. 6 squared minus 4 times 3 times negative 22. Don't forget the negative sign there. Over 2 times 3. So you can just put it exactly as it looks in your calculator. All right, be careful in case this is a negative. That's why I put a bracket here. If b is a negative value, that was a negative value, then that would become plus 6, and that will also be positive. But be careful to put the minus inside the bracket. Now when you press equals, that gives you one answer, which is minus 3 plus 5 root 3 over 3. Minus 3 plus 5 root 3 over 3. And the other one is also, of course, going to be minus 3 minus 5 root 3 over 3, all over 3. Okay, that's the other answer, okay, which is what you get when you put this as a minus sign. Now, it might show you slightly differently than it looks here. It's basically minus in front of the whole fraction, which is like minus 1 times both of these. So it's the same thing as this, basically. So this will give you your answer, which is minus 3.88675. So that's minus, what was it again? Sorry. 3.88675. 88675. And the other answer is when you make this into a positive sign, which we had before, minus 3 plus 5 root 3 over 3, which gives us 1.88675. So 1.88675. So we got to round to 4 significant figures. So 1, 2, 3, 4. That's going to be 1.887. Okay, and here you're going to have again 4. So negative 3.887. Those are the two solutions. One positive, one negative. Now here they're not asking us in part 2 any context of these answers. They're not saying, you know, find any perimeter like they're doing in the last part, or use these values to find anything to do with these triangles. So here's just saying solve this equation. So there's no context to this. But part 3 says find the perimeter of rectangle B. So if we have to now find the perimeter of rectangle B, and we can see that rectangle B has this, I'll just draw it here. I could have just drawn it by hand, but I've just done it like this. So here we have triangle B. Okay, I can't use x as negative 3.887 because this will be a negative length, which doesn't make sense. So here, when you put it in context, we're going to say we're going to use x equals 1.887. Okay, or we can say, minus 3 plus 5 root 3 over 3. Okay, we can use that value. All right, the exact value. So now, when I find the perimeter, we know the perimeter of a shape is 2 times its length plus 2 times its width. So 2 times these two plus 2 times those two. So the perimeter is going to be 2 times x minus 1, which is going to be 3 plus or minus 3 plus 5 root 3 over 3 minus 1 plus 2 times w, which is 2 times 2. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this answer that we've got here. Okay, I'm going to store this as A. Okay, that's now in A in my calculator. So now when I set this up, I'll have 2 times in brackets, and I'm going to recall A. Okay, 2 times A minus 1. Okay, and then plus 4. Plus 2 times 2 plus 4. That will give me my answer, which is 10 root 3 over 3. Which gives me 5.7735. 5.7735. Now, I'm going to round it, even though it says four decimal places. This was for this particular question. Now, generally, if it doesn't mention anything, you should round to 3SF. So I'll write my answer as 5.77 3SF. So there we have the answer to part 3 of this question, which is 9A. The other part of this question, 9B, is on a separate video, okay, which you'll find in the playlist. The playlist will be appearing at the end of the video in this region over here. Other questions from this topic of constructing equations can be found in this playlist over here. You can subscribe to my channel by clicking on the link here and watch the video that shows up on the card on the top. All right, it will tell you how to use my channel to help you with your revision. Thank you for watching and see you soon.